I'm here in front of the British Communist Party's headquarters, and guess what? They're all gay.
What's up, fellas? Hope you've been having a smooth few days because things are about to get bumpy today. So in the last video, we talked about how Mirror's Edge is one of the best games of all time. Hold on, that's not the right script. I mean, it is true, but anyway, sorry. So in the last video, we went over the post-mortem situation of 1348 Ex Voto. Shout out to the homie in chat who suggested the title, by the way. Unlike Mirror's Edge, it's one of the most incoherent, boring games I've ever played. But there's one big thing that I left out of it because it was big enough to warrant its own video, and so this is it. Let's get in there. I'll read the post in a minute, but here it is in its full splendor. This post popped up while I was browsing Ex Voto Steam Forums for some extra research on the side for that previous video, and it is so disingenuous that at first I thought it was rage bait. But nope, it's actually real. Basically, it's meant to mock and discredit the "where's the modern audience" narrative that many people have been wondering about since Ex Voto's shameful performance after pandering directly to them. This truly is the way the game is. If you want an entertaining long-form breakdown of it, I have one cooked up already. I'll link it down in the top comment and the description if you want to go down the rabbit hole. And so, despite all this, despite hundreds of thousands of performative wish lists and articles from games media gassing this game up, it flopped like a fish. So, duh, of course, people are going to ask where the modern audience is. Because this ended up as another example of games coming out that dial this sort of ideologically driven content up to 11 and still its intended audience does not show up. Long story short, this is relevant because various other games out there from popular franchises end up falling victim to activists in studios, consultants, or localizers wanting to shoehorn that same kind of ideologically driven content into those other popular games and franchises. In other words, and if you'll forgive me for a little bit of entitledness, into my favorite games and franchises that don't in absolutely no way whatsoever have a modern audience type of player base. Which is partly why they were targeted in the first place. It's this deranged idea of needing to diversify a fandom or a player base, make it for everyone as they like to say, even though it's always been for everyone already. No one was preventing any of these people who didn't like these games and franchises from buying them. The transaction was always simple. If you like something, you buy and engage with it. If you don't, you just move on. But this was reframed as something else entirely.
Why don't you explain this to me like I'm 5?
It's like if you don't like the color red and so you cannot buy red shirts, but then you force companies to reshape and redefine what red is because red shirts should be for everyone. So when you go into a shirt shop next time, you can never find red shirts again. There's a red shirt section, but they're all another color, like greens, yellows, blues, etc. Because quote-unquote red shirts should be for everyone now, especially for the morons who never liked the damn color in the first place. Does that make sense?
Okay, break it down in terms of... I think I'm getting you.
Because that's what's been happening to major franchises in entertainment for years now. And yet we're forced to contend with this type of shit for over a decade already, affecting so many studios, franchises, and even video game culture in general, making it softer, making it more socially aware, making it flaccid and wimpy, making it obsessed with political correctness and trigger warnings. All because of this delusional concept of a modern audience existing at all and companies wanting to cater to them while ignoring or going directly against the desires of their own player bases. Under the additional delusion that the modern audience is so large that they will fully make up for the loss of their original player bases and then some, further enriching the cucked out CEOs and higher-ups at these studios who allow these dumb decisions to get made by those same activists they foolishly hire to run sensitivity departments in their studios and projects. Departments that they don't even need in the first place for making video games. Departments that make the video games objectively worse. And so with that rant out of the way, and potentially one of the biggest intros I've ever made for a video, let's read the post and take it apart bit by bit. So this marvelously idiotic post reads, "Looks like the modern audience didn't show up, lol. This is such a dumb argument and you keep mindlessly repeating it. Do you buy every single game that you are the audience to? Do you buy every single game that is politically or socially aligned to you regardless of whether it's a good game, a genre you are into, etc.? The grift content creators that you parrot were saying the same things for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Hades 2, and gasp! Would you look at that? They both sold like hotcakes and have fantastic user scores. But you won't talk about their modern audience, will you? Boy oh boy do we have a lot to go through on this post, because this is packaged with delusional ideas not only of why people keep asking why the modern audience won't show up, but also the concept of why people even buy games to begin with. What is this moronic narrative about whether we buy every game that is politically or socially aligned to us? This is such a pure activist and tourist take that it can't even be answered or argued against. It just totally exposes how out of touch this guy is. We don't buy games based on political or ideological shit. We buy games based on whether those games are good or not. This is why it's important to gatekeep our hobbies from these morons. A decade or so ago, this wouldn't even be a conversational point that one could have, because we didn't have politically brain-rotted activists trying to co-opt the hobby into making video games, studios, publishers, and whole-ass platforms representing them and their politics, like how Sony and Xbox enjoy doing out on Pride parades and Pride streams. Instead of serving their goddamn customers with something of fucking value, this is what they're doing. This is what they want the world to see as they gush at how wonderful, beautiful, kind, and tolerant these corporations are, while simultaneously screwing us over with price hikes on consoles, games, and subscription services. Recently, Sony has even taken it a step further by doing variable pricing that is even worse than Nintendo's version of it that I talked about last year. Sony's variable pricing right now isn't even variable pricing, it's just discriminatory pricing. In case some of you don't know, here it is. If you're a proud member of the wonderful, brave, stunning, and progressive PlayStation ecosystem, you will now be paying more money for a video game depending on whether or not Sony feels like shanking you. A game for you might be $20, while if your girlfriend or a sibling or whatever checks the same game on their PlayStation consoles, it might be cheaper by $5 or $10. And you wanna know what's funniest? Depending on how good of a customer you are, the more you'll pay. So it's not even like a rewards program, it's more like, hey look, this dumbass owns like 200 games. He's such a pony that we can jack up the prices on his side, and he's likely to buy the products anyway. We have never been at this position in the games industry, man. People can complain about all sorts of other things that have happened over the years. We can bring up bad games, scams, predatory monetization schemes, bad practices, etc. going back decades. But never before have we seen these companies get political, literally just attaching themselves to a one-sided, growingly radical ideology and serve it and its activists, rather than minding their damn business and just making games for their customers. Never before have we seen race, gender, and sexuality take precedence when it comes to hiring staff, or when it comes to vital game design, dialogue, character design, or even entire game direction decisions. Their excuses are often that, well, they are serving their customers, as in their true customers, aka the modern audience, which fully embraces and appreciates this. So much so that it is the primary element of their identity and also the primary thing that they want to see in the content that they consume. For them, the stories, the characters, the gameplay, whatever else, all come second. Hell, maybe even third. Brother, let's be real here. Maybe even 10th down the priority list. What matters most is whether the garbage in the game and the people in the company are representative of their narcissistic ideology. And even then, it's not to buy it. It's just to find out whether or not they should support it on social media or do the opposite and try to get it to shut down or attack its actors or its sponsors or its sponsors' partners. Which brings us all the way back around to the point of this video, which is the fact that this is what the fight has always been against when it comes to ridding gaming and entertainment as a whole of this broken mindset that always results in failure anyway, because, again, these people don't buy games. They don't play games. Or they like to turn that around and claim that it's actually the chuds and the grifters who never play video games or support art, but at this point these people have become so politically brain-rotted that they see everyone that they disagree with as a grifter and a chud. All you gotta do to be a grifter or a chud is to just enjoy a game that they are ideologically opposed to, like Stellar Blade for example. Last but not least, that post also misrepresents what the Kingdom Come Deliverance and Hades 2 situation are all about, to a degree so massive that they're either doing it on purpose or they're just that dumb. Jury's still out on that one, keep listening and make your assessments, then let me know down in the comments. Or I'll do a poll at the end of the video. YouTube lets us put polls in videos now, it's a new thing. But anyway, let's not waste any more time unless you wanna like the video to help the channel, and let's get into the real sauce. The reason why people have brought up and should continue to bring up this whole thing about the modern audience either not existing or being so insignificantly pointless that they let every damn game that is made strictly for them fail, generating embarrassing flop after flop after flop, is because this was imposed on us to begin with. For years now, studios, publishers, consultants, localizers, and more have gone out of their way to change content within games as they claim to be adapting them to a modern audience. This isn't just present in games either, this is across other media such as movies and TV shows too. Basically, older ideas for stories, older presentations of characters, older presentations of dynamics between character types, or yikes, even worse for these people, dynamics between genders, or even things that are far simpler and got affected anyway, such as basic language during writing, have been considered to be too harmful or too problematic for today's standards. I'm not going to mince words here, fellas, it's an absolutely cucked mindset based on an incessant, annoying, weak mentality that revolves around those aforementioned trigger warnings, political correctness, social awareness, social impact, so on, so forth.
Soft language, that language that takes the life out of life, and it is a function of time. It does keep getting worse.
It's a whole bunch of bullshit, man. It's what it is. It's a whole bunch of bullshit. Remember cultural appropriation? That's something that doesn't show up as often anymore, but Jesus Christ, it was all over the goddamn social media spaces. Couldn't have a guy wear a sombrero because, oh my god, it's so offensive. I remember Ghost of Tsushima's whole thing on E3 like it was yesterday. A white guy comes up on stage in traditional Japanese robes and he plays a traditional Japanese instrument. A bunch of Karens on social media lose their composure because of that. Oh my god, it's cultural appropriation. Oh my god, Sony, you can't do this. Oh my god, this is so offensive. Meanwhile, Japanese people were happy, they appreciated it, because apparently the instrument is even something that is rare to see these days. It's kind of becoming a lost art, and so seeing someone from another culture pay so much respect to their own culture by doing that was a W. But to Karens on Twitter, it was enough of a sentence to get this man, Cornelius Boots is his name, to get fired and demonized online. Like I said, fella, it's a bunch of bullshit, okay? These are the core tenets of what makes up the appeal to the modern audience, and it has gotten so bad that it has even generated its own mini-industry within entertainment, by which I mean there's literal jobs now that are all about this, all about destroying our entertainment with soft-coded, ideological bullshit. That's what consultants like Sweet Baby Inc. are. That's what sensitivity departments, ethics departments, DEI departments, caked-in activists who never touched the goddamn game before being fully funded and running the show on huge companies like Sony, Ubisoft, EA, Square Enix, Xbox, etc. are too. They're job positions that were created because this clown show, this literal grift, has gotten so out of control that now there's an industry behind it. And sadly, it's not even just cosmetic. If it was just cosmetic to kind of just give the illusion that the company is progressive, but they had no say in what gets into the games, I wouldn't even care. Basically, it would probably be unnoticeable. But sadly, they have way too much say into what gets into the products, and so, here we are. These clowns that make up this clown show go and impose their rules, their limitations, their sensitivities, their kinks, their particularities, but frankly more than that and worse of all, their toxic, divisive, radical politics, plus their hatred for men and male-dominated spaces such as geek culture, especially in gaming, onto the media products that their companies are cranking out. And they do this while convincing their higher-ups that this is it. This is the way that it has to be, and it has to be this way for two main reasons. Number one, because this is the dominant culture. Spoiler alert, it obviously is not. But of course they LARP as if it is. And so this is how it must be for these products to sell. As a direct example of this, you got what happened with the Dragon Quest HD remakes, where the Western offices of Square Enix sent some blue-haired activist prick to tell the original creator of the series that the game had to line up and obey certain rules that the poor guy didn't even understand because he's an old Japanese man. Certain rules included renaming the genders male and female into body type A and B, plus some other ugly censorious garbage that, again, the man didn't understand, but had to obey. And the reason given to him is that this is it. This is how things are in the West. This is how Westerners think and act. In other words, a delusion of a 1%er who feels offended at the words male and female and instead uses utterly soulless robotic terms such as body type to refer as gender is now supposed to represent 100% of the West. This is how many people in the East view us, by the way. They think that we've all lost our goddamn minds, but anyway, that was major reason number one, the lie that this is how Western culture is, and so this is what games and other media must do in order to sell here. Body types, ugly characters, sensitive language, diversity quotas, so on and so forth. And not just as in literally to sell here, otherwise big corpo daddy Square Enix will not put it on sale, but also figuratively sell to you, the viewer, because you are supposed to be so cucked mentally that if you see male and female in the character selection screen, you might just scream and refund the game. So that was number one. Now for reason number two, this one is simpler, because if you don't, then you should be afraid of getting cancel cultured on social media and losing all your stock because of the incredibly well-oiled machine that these activist types had for a long time. And I say had in the past tense, but to be realistic with you guys, it's still going on now, it's just not as common. This comes straight from the wolves' mouths too. Sweet Baby Inc. operated this way, and their grip on the industry was so big that the CEO even proudly stated it out publicly for everyone to hear and learn how to do as well, form their own consultants and use the same tactics so they could keep spreading their shit like a bad rash.
Go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
And if I can't sell them on, hey, don't do that, I can instill fear by suggesting that once it gets past us, someone else will take them down for this.
In other words, coercion. Do it because if you don't, you'll get Twitter mobs attacking your company and putting pressure into your business partners, your sponsors, your investors, etc. to drop you. And all this just so nice to see. The lengths that people have gone to establish all of this modern audience shit is amazing. And now that it failed spectacularly to make any profit whatsoever, now that all that it did in the end was piss off scores of people and raise a big ass movement against it, they want to pretend like this thing never happened, or pretend like it never existed. That's really rich, but you ain't gonna get that shit by me, sweetheart. Why are we out here doing all these terrible Disney remakes where nothing new is created and the original stories get totally botched just to shoehorn in far-left coded pisswank? And by the way, since we're talking about Disney, what's up with all the race swaps too? Why did those get done? Why so many? It's not even just Disney, of course, it's a general thing. We have even some in the games industry, like Angry Boda and Saga Anderson, for example. Why did this become such a trend? Are we to pretend like it's got nothing to do with the curse of the modern audience? Why is Snape in the new Harry Potter also swapped? Well, of course it's because the originals of all these instances are bad, they're outdated, they're out of touch, they don't reflect a modern world for a modern audience that preoccupies itself more with social causes than the content itself. Never mind that there were already black characters in the wizarding world, never mind that the entire areas of the world, including Africa, have their own wizard schools just like Hogwarts. Never mind that you could just write some new shit and make a show over there, but no. No. What we really need is to go for the protagonists of the story and blackwash them as a brave and progressive move for a modern audience. Because the original is just too white. And that's a big problem for the modern audience. Oh boy, when things are too white or too male, they spaz the fuck out. There's other examples that pertain more to weird cultural things. For example, they hate orcs in Lord of the Rings. I don't know what it is with these retards, but they are actually legitimately so racist in real life that they equate orcs to people of color in their own heads. So they hate the way Lord of the Rings portrays them because in the movies and in the original works of Tolkien, they're just pure evil, corrupted monsters bred for war. And so Amazon has a bunch of activists trying so hard to humanize them in their shitty Rings of Power show, and it's just the soyest thing I've ever seen. They did one who was a poor, innocent orc woman with a baby, and oh my god, the daddy orc has to go to war to fight the oppressive humans and elves, and aw shit man, the poor little war-torn orc families, they never wanted any of this. Now the new season is going to have a new, like, orc companion in the good guys crew. Like, are these people sick in the goddamn head? They're orcs. They're the easiest layup you can have as far as fantasy villains go. But instead, they're turning this shit into modern audience Dungeons and Dragons. And you know what, fellas? I'm all for it. Because there's nothing I love more than watching these people lose millions and millions of dollars season after season. Another example is that utter failure of a Snow White movie with Rachel Zegler, one of the most obnoxious modern audience advocates. Why were things changed in this remake too? Well, duh, because the original story reflected things and values that are bad as well. You know, they're meant to be outdated, creepy, and patriarchal. And of course, none of this was ever decided by the audiences, but because activists who infiltrated that industry decided for everyone else that they were bad, problematic, and offensive things. So let's go and change these stories, these characters, and these concepts. This is another thing that makes these people so impossible to share the medium with. They want characters, stories, and the companies that make them to be given real-world impact. In other words, if at any point in a show or a movie or a game, a character does something that they deem as unacceptable, you know, one of those woke code violations, they want that shit cancelled. Even if it's a villain doing it, because if it's in the piece of media, then it's an automatic political endorsement. This is how brain-broken these people are. That's why the lobotomite who wrote that post assumes right off the get-go that everyone buys games off of politics and social causes. He can't even fathom a hobby being a hobby fit for escapism, and it's so sad. I always bring this up when I discuss these matters, how sad I find this to be, because pieces of media built for escapism are also things that unite people. It's like, hey man, you like Dragon Ball? Dude, I love Dragon Ball. Oh, no way, bro, what's your favorite saga? Oh man, you know, it's the Frieza saga. You can't go wrong with the Frieza saga. What about yours, man? Oh, dude, I love that one, but my favorite, it's definitely the first one in Z, you know, with Vegeta and his boys coming for Goku, and then Gohan being handed to Piccolo for training. Oh, dude, you know what? You're right, I love that one too. It's like these fucking people are so brain broken that they can't even fathom just having a goddamn conversation and a link with someone else, no matter where they are in the world, based on some piece of media that they both loved. For these brain broken bread tube gender, race, and sexuality obsessed zombies, the first thing is, of course, they gotta establish the pronouns and the trigger warnings. Then, instead of discussing their favorite sagas, they would go on about Japanese imperialism for about 2 hours, misogyny in the Dragon Ball roster, and the dangers of falling into an alt-right pipeline by giving into Dragon Ball physical exercise culture. Then one of the retards would make a wrong assumption about the other's astrology sign or something like that, and they would become deadly enemies. You know, it is what it is. This is how it goes with these people. That's why they all hate each other. There's no loyalty, no respect, no honor, no nothing. There's only obedience to the ideology. You slip up once and it's over. They feed you to the dogs. At the root of all this, the point was that there was this lie, that again, this is it. This is the culture, this is how it is progressive, and it is the future. oversensitivity, social impact, and political correctness over entertainment. And that lie was maintained and enforced through various channels. A big one, as an example, is Hollywood. All those celebrities parroting the same popular things, telling people what to support too, who to vote for in some cases.
It is our pleasure to come together and to get the vote out this election. Come on.
Yeah, how can we be of service?
Well, how about we start with what our voting plans are going to be, who we're going to bring to the polls with us, that sort of thing.
I think Kamala Harris needs a catchphrase.
Ooh, yes, definitely a catchphrase.
Vote.
Kamala forever.
That's better.
Look at the top of his head.
And accusing over half of the damn population of their own countries of being ists and phobes over basic political disagreements. And in a wide-reaching manner too. This isn't like going back to the 80s or whatever and a celebrity going, hey, end world hunger. It isn't that. It's insanely broad brush stuff. It's literally just, if you're a good person, you'll support the Democrat Party, and if you support the conservative one, you're an Austrian painter. And as the years went by and the left continued to get progressively more and more left-wing towards the extremes, this didn't stop. They carried on as well, so much so that now you don't even have to be a conservative to be an Austrian painter, you can just be a centrist. But still, through this damn mechanism, making it truly look like these things were the majority belief and the current zeitgeist to fall into. All our favorite entertainment, no matter if it's games, movies, TV shows, whatever, ditching stories in favor of the message. The message is king, that's why we saw it and still keep seeing it across all manner of stuff. Star Wars, Marvel, cartoons, Indiana Jones, Lord of the Rings, Star Trek, Doctor Who. Oh god, why did I have to remind myself of Doctor Who again? That whole thing was rich. The guy in charge, Russell T Davies, literally had an entire monologue about how a villain was presented in a wheelchair a long time ago, and so now it's 2023, it's a new world, a modern world, and we don't do that anymore. We don't present villains in a wheelchair because we don't want people to think that all wheelchair-using people are evil. So when they brought back the villain, he was now walking. Do these lobotomites even hear themselves and how stupid they sound? And then on top of that, the disingenuousness sucks too, because if you complain, they flip it on you. Oh wow, you're so much of a snowflake that you get mad because the villain walks now?
I'm a heterosexual male. In all forms of media that I've grown up with, I've never once was not represented. You won't know the opposite and the opposition end if you're not someone who's never been represented in media. And sometimes maybe you might be Asian, black, Hispanic, whatever, and you don't care about media representation, and that's fine. But growing up, every fucking action figure I've seen, most of them were white. Most of the movies are white. Most of the people in the movies and shit were white. Straight people, not gay, not transsexual, etc. There is a level of representation that is important in the world. Asmongold, not understanding this fact and being frustrated because I think he's 32, 33, in the last 4 years have started fucking seeing gay people, he's having a fucking spasm attack. You can call me woke, I don't really give a fuck, but you can't sit here and crave you want Modern Warfare lobbies back and people to call each other slurs and say crazy things, but you spaz out every time you see a fucking rainbow.
But in reality, we don't care. The singular thing isn't the problem that causes our reactions, it's the entire package. It's the way that this is just yet another drop in a bucket that has already overflowed years ago. And we're just goddamn sick of it all. And the bucket exists in the first place because they are the goddamn snowflakes who can't stand to see a villain portrayed on a wheelchair without thinking the absolute brain-dead thought of generalizing it and applying it to our real world. We tolerated so much of it and it's just over. It's done. Enough of catering to maladjusted, entitled morons. With all their little rules that they bring to the table, all of these little creative restrictions that we have to follow, because of absolutely out-of-touch societal standards that nobody fucking has except themselves. All these goddamn limitations, and they never stop either, they just keep coming. The activism of 2016 is very different from the activism of 2026. It just keeps going and upping the ante year after year after year. Hundreds of new rules rules, restrictions, and political injections that entertainment has to shove into themselves to keep these people happy, and then when it's time to put your balls on the table and buy the product or be there to goddamn watch it, they don't. So many franchises affected, and it doesn't stop there, it just keeps going and going like we're seeing right now with Harry Potter, Warhammer 40k, and numerous video game franchises. Some of them that were destroyed completely and others that are in the process of doing so. And now we're seeing this same thing sneaking into the indie space as well. And the whole thing is so dominated, built on, and maintained by lies that it makes me sick. So I'm sorry if this part of the video has been a bit more scattered and ranty, but please bear with me here as I carry on ranting, because there's so much of it that it's like an entangled mess. It's an ideology that destroys everything it touches, and it's being marketed as the popular and profitable thing, when in reality it couldn't be further from the truth. It protects itself entirely with lies and social mechanisms meant to put a fake pressure on us. Let me give you an example. They'll go and directly target medieval fantasy type of settings that usually are based in the European aesthetic. Think of Witcher or Lord of the Rings, for example. No shortage of activists in and outside of the industry, including games media, writing articles and columns about how these are bad because they lack diversity. Even outside of these franchises, remember, they did this to Kingdom Come Deliverance and Final Fantasy 16 as well. But it's just the way that these settings look, and so it's the way that they should be made. Same exact thing as if we get a game set in the Middle East, like Assassin's Creed Mirage for example, I want a predominantly Middle Eastern demographic and culture on it. I don't want it to look like modern day California. But what do they do to put pressure on people and stop the conversation? Well, they break out the optics games and call you a racist. What's the problem with diversity? Are you a bigot? Never mind the fact that the games industry has always had various characters of various backgrounds. See, when these snakes try to get you with one of these arguments, it's not because they want to diversify the entertainment industries with more characters like Coltrane or Blade. After all, those characters already exist, and people have always enjoyed them regardless of identity. And that's precisely why they're still part of the problem for these activists. But it is that type of argument that they use in order to get through the door before introducing what they really want, which is characters like these, like the garbage that is in the thumbnail of this video, or at least I think it'll be in the thumbnail. I don't know what thumbnail I'm gonna use yet. But basically characters that no gamer wants because they're dog shit. They're not even characters, they're walking talking billboards for the message. So that's a lie within another lie. See what I mean when I say that this stuff is entangled like crazy? Anyway, earlier I mentioned how Hollywood celebrities were used as a mechanism for feigning popularity. Another mechanism that they used to astroturf this bullshit movement and this non-existent modern audience into going from looking like the minority that it is to the perceived majority that should be appealed to was social media and that toxic cancel culture nonsense that shuts down any conversation. Any form of dissent or wrong thing towards their ideology is immediately a ticket to life ruination. This alone caused many people to not even want to speak up whenever they had disagreements, and social media websites were incredibly captured by it too. Algorithms geared towards boosting this garbage while simultaneously suppressing and banning people for talking about or sharing things that went against it. Groups crushed on the spot to keep people who thought different contained, just to give them the idea of how truly alone and out of touch their perfectly normal, common sense questions were. It took quite a lot of it until people started waking up to how crazy all of this was, and to what degree it was happening too. I think the controversy around Hogwarts Legacy was a big turning point on that, and of course so was the purchase of Twitter, which led to much of this being exposed, and for the first time in a long time, the social media space being more open to free thinking and free speech. So much damage has been done in so many facets of our lives because of crap like this. Like, it isn't even just gaming, it's frustrating to even get into this. Even the things they claim to be doing this for, like even the very ideologically influenced modern audience content, has done nothing but damage shit. Like, for example, a frustrating thing making these videos sometimes is when people cherry-pick sentences of mine to make me look like some kind of 4th Infantry bigot general, especially when I bring up how gaming is male-dominated, for example. It's like, oh, that guy DeZambro is just a misogynist, he doesn't want women in gaming. It's a stupid generalization. There's no shortage of women who have done great work in studios across the years, but it's women who liked the hobby for what it was and joined the industry to add to it rather than change shit, which is what activists do. And activists do this in their name, in the name of women. And what's the outcome for all the female players out there that they supposedly champion? Garbage. Lame, ugly-looking, detestably written female characters that are impossible to look up to. If you're a girl gamer and cosplayer, you can't even get any cosplaying content because they look like crap, including the outfits that they wear. Because instead of heroic armor sets or outfits that look epic, it's instead baggy garbage bags so that their body shapes aren't featured. And if they are featured, then they're fat or they're androgynous. Now let's say you're a black female gamer. Double minority. Oh, the modern audience loves that above all. What have they done for them too? Even worse, garbage designs so unappealing and abrasive that even black progressive designers like this guy, Del Walker, have reluctantly called out in the industry. How he keeps trying to pitch beautiful, graceful looking black female characters, but they keep getting rejected and coming back fat and balding. It's ridiculous, man. This ideology is so toxic that it doesn't even provide worthwhile content to the people of the identities it latches itself onto in order to gain power. But let's get back to orbiting the main argument related to the modern audience thing. This idea, this lie of appealing to the modern audience being the thing to do because they're actually the majority was so predominant, so baked into our culture, that some of these lampposts in these studios were filled with the confidence to go out on social media and tell people complaining to just not buy and not watch what they were making. They were so deep in their bubbles, these lovely bubbles maintained by all these lovely mechanisms working in unison, that they had the balls to tell their customers to f off because, hey, they were promised that with the modern audience, it doesn't even matter how many disgruntled old toxic fans you lose, because for each one that leaves, 10 more rainbow audience boys will be gained. Didn't work out so good in the end though, did it? I even have these funny articles of some instances that I remember it happening in, like from the Doctor Who show. Just don't watch it. Well, we didn't. And then it flopped like a goddamn fish.
When you're in our DMs or on those YouTube comments or in Twitch chat right now, those reactionary threads thinking that I'm somehow ruining your current X-Play experience because you can't objectify me how you previously did to Morgan, or that I'm somehow less qualified to speak on something, but you can't quite put your finger on why, even though I'm reading the exact same script as Adam, but you have no problem with he's part of it. You're letting your unconscious biases ruin my day, and you're gatekeeping the gaming space. So maybe for 2022, we be a bit nicer, a bit more self-reflective, and we enjoy the fact that people are working hard to make free content for you. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Peace!
Crazy, dog.
And so now, again, as these modern audience first productions crash and burn with flop after flop, we rightfully ask, where's the modern audience that was meant to hold these productions up? Where's the modern audience that was meant to completely shadow us in terms of numbers? Could it be that they don't exist? Could it be that these deranged morons who preached about this are so out of touch that they legitimately thought that the average person just trying to live their life one day at a time, looking for quality entertainment as escapism, was on their side in wanting their stories to be obsessively focused on identity politics? Could it be that they were so deluded that they thought that the average dude heading out to work and having to put up with some Karen from HR would actually want the same types of Karens from HR writing his goddamn favorite sci-fi TV show, comic book movie, or Star Wars epic?
What are you, fucking stupid?
Nah, it could never be them who are wrong. It's just the grifting content creators who are grifting. I don't even have a way to tag the op of that post, but to anyone who shares the same view, you're not going to rewrite history, you're not going to recontextualize reality. This is what's been happening over the past years. Games, movies, shows, etc. were all meant to follow these same sets of social-political guidelines and rules. Shit like this list from Xbox Game Studios, for example. All in order to appeal to this cucked culture so the games or movies or whatever would actually be successful and fit into the zeitgeist. Well, where is it? Where's the success? We've lost so much quality entertainment by pandering to this bullshit for so many years. So I'm sorry, Karen, but the question has to be asked. Where's the money? Where's the modern audience? Whenever we have a piece of media that strictly focuses on this kind of overly censorious, politically correct, woke garbage, it fails. Because these things are so unpopular and by nature so antithetical to entertainment and escapism that the more of it you focus on, the shittier the product is and the worse you make it for your movement. In this part, we're going to cover the supposed examples of exceptions, which are Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Hades 2. Buckle up, fellas, because a lot of context and history is incoming. Apparently these two games are modern audience games, and they were so successful that none of the grifters ever bring it up. No, and also, apparently, they're so packed with cringy ideological content that they received the same kind of treatment that 1348 Ex Voto received. It's the same thing, guys, you know, 1348 Ex Voto and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 totally represent the exact same thing.
Right.
In reality, this is Scope 2. I'm not even going to waste any time here, man. Video is already long as it is, and even though I'm used to making long videos discussing these things, I also feel that sometimes it hurts the video's reach because of how many people just don't have the time or are into long-form content, ending up in the algorithm burying the videos by deeming them as uninteresting as people click off. That change last year was a massive pain in the ass for channels like mine. Engagement is now king on YouTube, so get too many people clicking off of a long video and you're cooked. But anyway, I'll at least explain why this is Scope 2. Honestly, I'm even surprised that this dude didn't bring up the holy grail that these sort of fellas usually bring up, which is Baldur's Gate 3. It's almost always the game that they bring up, and for good reason too, because number one, I don't even know why Hades 2 is here. I never heard about this game from any gamer. The most I've ever heard of it was last year around the time that the Game Awards came around, because it was listed in various categories. To this day, besides at the Game Awards with that little showcase thing, I haven't seen anyone share a single gameplay clip or talk about it on social media. I'm sure the game is solid, after all, so was the first Hades, but to cling to this as an example of anything is ridiculous. Also, I'm 100% sure that the reason why this game is enjoyed is because it's a competently made roguelike dungeon crawler, and not because of any modern audienceisms that they might have added in there. So just in case this has some cringe that I don't know about, rest assured, little brother, that's not what's acting as the selling point for the game. Next, let's get into the real sauce. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. So why is it not surprising that these people usually only bring up Baldur's Gate 3? Because if they were honest with themselves, they wouldn't praise Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 as a modern audience game. In fact, the modern audience is currently attacking that Knight's Path game that got into beef with 1348 Ex Voto for two things that are present in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which are you being locked to playing as a guy with no female option and female characters in the game looking like actual women. Now granted, unlike Knight's Path and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, you have two male romance options. But we all know these retards aren't known for compromise and reason. If they were, they wouldn't be mad at Knight's Path in the first place. They'd also never have demonized, stalked, and harassed people for playing Hogwarts Legacy. They wouldn't run articles filled with lies against Black Myth Wukong. They wouldn't deem Lord of the Rings as lacking diversity. They wouldn't attack Lords of the Fallen for just using words like male and female in the game. They wouldn't consider Stellar Blade a chud game just because the protagonist looks attractive. So on, so forth. I could literally be here all day, fellas. I got more receipts than a stingy boomer dad who never throws them away just in case a 30-year-old toaster breaks down and he insists on taking it down to the store to check if the lifetime warranty thing was real or bullshit. So if those elements were enough to make these soy boys mad at Knight's Path, it would be more than enough reason for them to be mad at KCD2 as well, if they were consistent. But they cope and seethe reluctantly claiming this game as their own, because that way they can pretend as if KCD2 represents them, when it obviously doesn't. And we'll dive into why right now, but before that, another thing that is funny to me is that while at the same time morons like this claim the game, other morons on Twitter are already grouping up and hating on it because Daniel Vavra has recently come out in support of using AI in video games and other forms of art. Isn't it funny how these people operate? They don't decide whether they like a game based on the game, they decide based on these external values. That's why they're not people of reason and of compromise. The Daniel Vavra thing isn't even related to the game itself. Daniel Vavra isn't even working over there anymore, he's out making movies now. But because he supports AI, there's people now retroactively going, well, I will never play KCD2 ever again. They're so ridiculous, and then you have to sit here and listen to them try to claim the game as one of their own.
Some people are really fucking stupid.
There's two elements that got Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 into hot water, and both of them were very contextual. Number one, they made Henry gay, or rather, they made him bisexual. In the original game, he was straight. It wasn't just established through the RPG experience itself, where your romance options were all just women, but also stated by the developers themselves here on this comment a long time ago. And number two, they introduced a random black guy in the game, which frankly wasn't even the big deal that the modern audience tries to make it look like, because it's not there to make the subversive woke claim that medieval Europe was as diverse as California in 2026. It's not there as a diversity quota, where now anywhere you go there's a bunch of non-white NPCs all over the place just chilling as if that was part of the world. It's none of that, it's just a black guy who travels with Sigismund's army from another region. The reason why this popped out though was because it was also in direct opposition to an original claim that had been made by the developers of the game a long time ago. Specifically, this one right here, where back when the first game was made, activists got mad at the lack of diversity in the game, and Daniel Vavra responded that there were no black people in 1400s Bohemia. I covered both of these dramas on this video where I go over some history related to the studio's fights with game journalists and other activists during the first Gamergate over a decade ago. Daniel Vavra fought against this activism nonsense back then, and it came at a cost. The first game already released in a rough shape, but with Daniel Vavra being so vocal against the games industry, against video game journalism, against activists such as the feminist frequency people like Anita Sarkeesian, etc., it only made it worse for the game. Then his studio was bought out, so with the new game, KCD2, Warhorse wasn't independent anymore. His own words and his own values were no longer at the top of the priority list, and with a bigger budget invested into making the sequel, Daniel Vavra was afraid that the same backlash that hit his game and studio the first time around would happen again and hit twice as hard because of how much worse cancel culture had gotten during the 2020s. I believe this is why these decisions that are direct counter to the previous comments that Daniel Vavra made got added in the first place. You know what I mean? I think that's why Henry became bisexual, and also why they softened that hardline stance against adding diversity at all to their world. In general, these aren't even issues for most gamers who play RPGs. Same-sex romance options in RPGs like the good old Dragon Age or Mass Effect games, or even straight up just gay characters on their own like Dion in Final Fantasy XVI, aren't a thing that's going to cause a shitstorm online on their own. If characters are well written and handled well, most people don't care. They're just characters. In fact, the ones that usually do care are the modern audience types, because they get mad. They seethe that the character is just a normal, well-written character that happens to be gay, for example, instead of being one that flaunts their sexuality and makes it their entire personality and main plot point. That's why game journalists and activists don't like Dion. They also seethe when the characters aren't gay enough, just like some are already moaning about in regards to 1348 Ex Voto, because yup, it's almost as if the character isn't even in a relationship. In this case, it's not because it's well written. Oh brother, it is not. But it's because there's no relationship in sight. There's not a single kiss or a single loving gesture the entire time, just violence by the end. So anyway, I believe people were far more mad at Daniel Vavra in particular and his lack of balls to keep up his standards than even the game itself. In fact, I've only ever heard good things about the game from many people who played it. It's not that the disappointment of those aforementioned points isn't brought up, because again, people did feel lied to, in a way. way. After all, the developer spent weeks going, trust us, don't believe the leaks, just trust us, we would never do anything like that, just trust us. Like, why lie and stall? Just own it and be honest at least. I can't speak for everyone, but I speak for myself that I understand that sometimes you have to make compromises to coexist with certain bosses or within certain companies, but at least be honest about it. That was always my thing, because the game itself is good, and again, all of this is covered in this video. It's information from an interview that Daniel Favre gave back in April or May of last year, in his own country, in his own language, but it was translated. This dude would never admit that he did what he did because of those things, but when you line up everything that happened, it paints a clear picture. Besides, it's not like Daniel Favre is trustworthy. He can direct some good games, but he lies with zero honor. He did it before launch, and he did it after launch in the weeks that followed the game's release, where he would even deny the legitimacy of the screenshot from the studio confirming that Henry was straight. He does a lot of circular talking too, like instead of just saying it outright, this is what he did, he would say things like, well, sometimes men appear to be straight, but then later in their lives they find out that they're actually gay. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're making a video game. When you're making a video game and you're designing the character, you know what the character is, you're creating it. So yeah, anyway, good luck trying to get anything out of him when it comes to straight honesty. Regardless, it's all in that video. This is its name and thumbnail. I'll also link it in the description and top comment in case you guys want to watch the full story of how I believe they made these additions to KCD2 to appease activists in games media and games industry circles, maybe snatch an award at the Game Awards, but in the end, it was fruitless. Because it doesn't matter. These people will never like or respect Warhorse after what happened during the first Gamergate. And posts like that from the op who bring up KCD2 as some kind of win for themselves only do it out of two reasons. Either to cope or because they don't know the history. If they did, they would hate Warhorse for their comments and stances during the first Gamergate, including comments and stances against Anita Sarkeesian, which is to many of these people a patron saint of their ideological grift. So in conclusion, did anti-woke content creators talk shit about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2? Yes, but much more so because of this whole complicated mess, rather than the game itself being dog shit because of wokeness or ideological content or any other modern audience-isms. You take away these two things that I mentioned here, and this is a game that's actually packed with content that is actually hated by activists, game journalists, and woke brigades. Women are beautiful, for example, no weird, ugly-ass women who look like men in bowl cuts. In fact, some of them aren't just pretty, they're hot too. Straight up that male gaze material that they hate so much. So much so that I can't even show this intro scene without the blur, otherwise YouTube might flag it as nudity. The game is also written and presented very plainly. No they-them-isms, no modernisms, no pride flags, no subverted random female kings or some shit with an army of bandit knights, no nothing. This game is packed with things that modern audience tards complain in regards to Crimson Desert 2. Why don't they complain about it when it comes to KCD? Because again, they're coping so hard from constantly getting owned and shown that the type of things that they want in games is so detestable and unpopular that it makes games fail. So they just have to take these W's wherever they can. Even if it's games like KCD2 with like 90% straight up normal content that they dislike and only like 10% pandering. They'll still take that and try to chalk it up as a win for them to own the chuds and most importantly to feed into that narrative of the modern audience mattering so that next time instead of 10% pandering they can hopefully turn it into 20% pandering, and on this goes just like it did throughout the entire last decade. 10% now, 20% later, and on it goes until you're making Dragon Age Veilguard and Concord. Realistically though, if you were to remove that 10% pandering, your game would literally do better. Henry and Hans's relationship, for example, was one of like brothers, utterly and completely opposite to one another when they meet, but through the fires of battle and hardship, they become like brothers. This would have been objectively a far better focus point for the sequel than introducing a boring, nonsensical romance plot that comes more across as fanfiction. Even with it just being optional and entirely avoidable, it hits different knowing that the developer has that open intention written into Hans's character now, where before there was no such thing. It's hard to explain this because when I play, for instance, Dragon Age Inquisition, I have no problems whatsoever with the fact that Dorian is a mage from Tevinter who is only romanceable by male inquisitors. In other words, he's gay. Doesn't bother me one bit, and I even like his arc. He's an interesting, well-written character. But in KCD2, it definitely hits differently, and I think that's because it just wasn't that type of game. It's kind of like taking Ellie and Joel, who have a very specific father-daughter type of relationship in The Last of Us. It's established, it's the way it is, it's built to be that way, but instead introducing an option to change it into some other shit where they, for example, finish the game hating one another. It's like, no, it's not that kind of game, and when you build the narrative mechanisms to make that possible, you take away something special that the original relationship had inherently built into it. And now, lastly, if you were to take those 10% of pandering and increase it instead to like 20, 30, hell, maybe 50, brother, thereby removing more focus from actually appealing story points, world building, quest design, narrative focus, etc., and dumping it into modern audience-isms, you would objectively have a worse game that would sell much less, because time and again, the data has shown that nobody wants none of that shit, big dog. All you'd have on your hands is another Veilguard, Kingdom Age Veilguard 2, and here's the kicker, all that we laid out just now applies to Baldur's Gate 3 as well. It's a game in a similar place, there's way more DEI type of content in that, no doubt about it, but with each thing that is present, there is an opposite thing added too. It's a game about full freedom, you do what you want to do, you play as what you want to play. It's an old school RPG on steroids in which the vast majority of the content, and indeed the most important elements of it, are not influenced by ideological garbage, and it's not like dinging you in the head with morality lessons the way that Veilguard does. If you want to bang every companion and create a character with blue hair, you're free to do so. If you want to do the exact opposite of that, you're free to do that as well. In Veilguard, you can't even be rude to your fellow companions, even if they're being stupid, because the game is soy, made by soy developers and a soy director. You're supposed to dive into the soy, you're supposed to let the soy become you. The soy is the way, brother. That's why it's a dogshit game that failed, because ideological elements are fucking obnoxious, they're invasive, they're restrictive, and they are antithetical to fun. That's why they fail. They're not built for enjoyment. They're garbage built for activists to lay claim to. That's all they ever did. That plus LARPing like they used to back during the first Gamergate, where they'd make those cringy feminist frequency videos where people who never touched Bayonetta would go and talk about why Bayonetta is so bad for the games industry and society at large. Well, Bayonetta sold. Medieval lesbians in Italy didn't. So why don't people talk about the modern audiences of Kingdom Come Deliverance? Because they're not modern audience games at all. It'd be like asking the same question for Bayonetta just because Bayonetta stars a woman who kicks ass and slays demons. It's time to stop all this LARPing. These activist movements in gaming deserve the right to say what they want to say, but that's as far as it should ever go. It's time to stop giving them any legitimacy whatsoever. Nobody owes them anything. It's time to shut down all these backwards ass departments in game studios that aren't even about games, they're about politics. All these ethics departments, sensitivity committees, DEI groups, etc. Time to shut all this shit down. Time to kiss narrative consultants like Sweet Baby Inc. goodbye and get back to the cold hard reality that yes, all this shit was astroturfed garbage that has done nothing but damage studios and caused dozens of thousands of layoffs. And until this is done, we'll be right here to ask time and time again, where is the modern audience every time another one of their games releases and fails miserably? And also mercilessly remind them that they did this. Because it's just a simple truth. These people came into our medium, they shoved their shit into our games, our movies, our shows, our comics, our tabletop stuff, etc. And they told us, hey, all this stuff you like, it's gone. It's problematic. It shouldn't exist, and so we're going to chip away at it more and more every year until you have nothing left. Because your time is over, chud. Ain't no other way around it. They did this. No one else. But that does it for this video. Thank you all very much for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed it, dislike it if you didn't, and if you made it this far, I'd love to hear your thoughts or any feedback that you guys might have for me in my videos down in the comments. But either way, I'll see you on the next one. Take care.